Hey everybody, I was tagged on a Facebook thread involving boycotting the NFL. I do not support boycotting the NFL, and I have some very personal reasons for my decision, and I'm going to share them with you. And I'm going to direct this primarily at one of the people on the thread, Oakland Council Member Gibson McElwain, who is my council member, who also sits on the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, and yet is putting out this signal about boycotting the NFL, as if she wants the NFL out of the Coliseum, which I think is completely irresponsible, okay? But I don't aim this at Lynette for those primary reasons, but it's how the organization she represents treated me that led to the story that I'm about to tell you regarding the National Football League and why I do not support a boycott. And it is a personal story. I headed the effort from 1999 to 2001 to form a bid to bring the 2005 Super Bowl to Oakland. The economic impact for Oakland would have been tremendous. $68 million in direct spending, augmented by something called Jack London's NFL Playland. For those of you who remember the San Francisco Super Bowl, you undoubtedly can't forget Super Bowl City. Well, this face you're watching right now is the person who created what became the Super Bowl City concept when I installed Jack London's NFL Playland, a concept I just came up with from scratch in our plan. Why did I do that? Because had we not created a place and built a place for concerts and special food and presentation pavilions, we would have lost what few hoteliers were staying in Oakland to activities in San Francisco. I wanted to reverse that. I'm very proud of that. There are a number of innovations in that book, that bid book. I formed that bid, according to the Oakland Tribune, by their words, single-handedly. I had no material help from the city and only city manager Robert Bob as my cheerleader. The only time the city got interested in it was when it was quite obvious I was getting national and international press, and as then Oakland Council member Ignacio de la Fuente said, I was bringing the Oakland Coliseum and the Joint Powers Authority the only positive press they had all year long. And prior to that, every time I went to work at the city administration building, every morning, there was someone who would take time to tell me that I would never get the Super Bowl to Oakland. What I was proud of is not just, as some of you may be thinking in listening to this, that it was the Super Bowl, but what it really was, and what Oakland does not understand to this day, that the Super Bowl that I worked on was one of the largest economic projects the city ever undertook. It would have involved $22 million in direct private spending to produce basically a temporarily refurbished Coliseum to handle the Super Bowl. It would have caused a gigantic focus and marshaling of resources in Oakland to make Oakland that shining city on a hill, America's best example of diversity, which is what I said to the Super Bowl Policy Committee of the National Football League in 1999. It would have provided thousands of jobs for artisans, many of them women, Black, Latino, Asian, people of color, in all kinds of ways. Contractors, building stages and sets at Jack London's NFL Playland for groups like one I would want to go after as an example of a number of them, big names like the Rolling Stones. Activities at smaller venues throughout the city associated with Super Bowl parties in Oakland. Guitarists, musicians of all types, painters, writers. Because why? Because people need copy written for documents that were promoting whatever type of event they were going to plan. I can go on and on and on and on and on. All of that. The city of Oakland treated me like crap during that period. There's no other way to put it. On June 22nd, April 22nd, at 4:14 in the afternoon, then Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown and his assistant, then Jacques Bargagi, were at the city administration building. I ran into them. I wanted to talk to Jerry about the Super Bowl project, and more focused, my attempt at getting San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown to support us. Jerry told me, and I quote, "I don't have time for you." Okay? Then I had established a sports commission, the Oakland Alameda County Sports Commission, still the only one of its kind in Oakland's history. What is a sports commission? An organization that actually forms bids to bring events to a region or a town so that convention centers, arenas, and stadiums stay filled. What does that mean? It translates into jobs. Jobs for vendors, jobs for security workers, custodial workers. You get the idea. That's what that does. I created it from scratch, and I had it such that federal approval, tax approval, came within 4 months. Just as Oakland City Attorney Jane Williams told everyone I wouldn't do it, and I might add Dina McClain, who was over the JPA at the time, told everyone I wouldn't do it, couldn't get it done. I did it in 4 months. They said it was going to take 2 years. I won that bet. I even was blocked by SMG. That's right, Stadium Management Group, and Spectacor Management Group, excuse me. And Sally Roach, and I've written about this, who was the manager of Coliseum, said that the bid specifications document I came up with was wrong. We had a conference call with her boss, of all people, Glenn Mon, who Sally Roach, didn't know that I had an acquaintanceship with and a great relationship with. So this is what Sally does in this conference room. And my buddy Mike Silver from now at the NFL Network and Monty Poole then of the Oakland Tribune were in the room when this happened. She says, "Glenn, Zinni says that the host committee budget is going to be between $3 and $5 million. That can't be right." To which Glenn on the speakerphone said, "No, Zinni's got that right." She turned 3 shades of red, folks. This is the person that managed the Coliseum at the time. Then, when I discovered I couldn't find drawings to go into the bid book of the Coliseum, Sally Roach and Dina McClain told City Manager Robert Bobb that Steve McFadden, formerly the architect of the Coliseum, had stolen the drawings. I didn't believe that. Why? These are key fire drawings. Drawings that fire marshals need. But rather than be concerned about not having them, they said that. I didn't believe it for a second. So I went on a personal hunt for the drawings. I found them. A gentleman by the name of Monir Habalou of H&TB, the organization that designed the stadium for the Raiders to return, called me and said, "Zinni, I have your drawings." But then guess what? He called me back 4 hours later and said, "Sally Roach says you have to go through her to get them." I called Robert Bobb, said, "You fire her now. Right now." Robert had a meeting, because at that time she was the head of the Super Bowl effort, and he put me in charge. Okay? The city of Oakland put me through the ringer. Now what's the point? The point is this. Oakland does not want to be great. It wants to sit back and complain about things, and has representatives that want to politically grandstand but don't want to do any economic development work. If you want to improve the NFL, the way you do it is by getting Colin Kaepernick a job. And the way you get Colin Kaepernick a job is by lobbying an organization like the Oakland Raiders right now to make room for him. Hey, Colin Kaepernick would have been as great an addition as E.J. Manuel, the person that the Raiders did bring on. But did anyone, even Councilmember McElhaney, who's on the JPA, think to say to the Raiders, hey, Colin Kaepernick would be great for you. Bring him in. Nope, didn't think that at all. Not at all. Okay? You put pressure on your team. But boycotting the NFL, trying to take money away from it, hurts a number of African American players and personnel, many of whom have now high-ranking positions of influence within the National Football League. Within the National Football League. Okay? Troy Vincent, for example, among others. So, this is wrong-headed. And 60% of the NFL's players are black. If you want to support the NFL and have the NFL do the right thing, you impose upon the NFL, for example, in the California parlance, an initiative. An initiative stating that NFL teams cannot discriminate against any player, or any team cannot discriminate against the player for exercising their free speech rights. That would be a great initiative. You proactively move to improve the organization. But to think that the NFL is going to change via a boycott is silly. You say, oh, it brings attention to the problem. You know what? There's already been a ton of attention brought to the problem. Now, the focus must be on getting Colin Kaepernick employed, because it's not putting money in his pocket. Do I support Colin Kaepernick's national anthem protest? 1,000,000%. But the NFL was personally good to me because all the crap that I went through with the city of Oakland was in the face of the National Football League, and they saw it. Someone from Jerry's office even called the NFL, asking them questions that I already gave the city the answer to regarding my Super Bowl bid. So when we lost the vote to Jacksonville, and the great work that Heather Surface, their head of economic development, had done on getting the Jacksonville Super Bowl for 2005, Joe Brown, then the executive vice president of the NFL for government relations, personally came to me and said, Zinni, if there's anything we can do for you, you let us know. And that was because they saw Oakland treating me like crap. I didn't ask the NFL for a job. I wanted to start my own business and craft my own culture. But I did ask to cover the NFL draft, and I've covered it every year since 2005. First person to do so with a YouTube channel. First person to do so with live stream. I brought Ustream to the NFL draft. Then they changed the rules and created what called the Zinni rules. But I digress. I made more YouTube videos of the NFL draft than any other single person or media outlet in NFL history. I have built my business around that. The NFL has been my friend. I am not going to turn my back on the National Football League. And I'm not the only person, not the only African-American person with such a story. So you want to talk to me about positive change? You want to make positive change? You make absolutely certain that you have laws and you act proactively to have organizations like the Raiders and the 49ers and the Rams and the Chargers make room for Colin Kaepernick. But boycotting is silly.